Hello. Welcome to another The Special Marketing Live Show. Today, we're going to talk about this amazing content format, which is podcast or podcasting, as you want. And I'm pretty sure that some of you may be wondering, okay, this could be a nice platform, but it is already really crowded, or it's not for me because my voice doesn't sound good, or I don't have nothing to say, I don't have nothing to tell that anyone else is already saying. I know that you're maybe thinking about this because at some point I thought the same, or I know someone who does it. So today we're going to talk about this or even more things. But let me know, by the way, on which platform you're located. Hello, Gabby. ¿Cómo estás? Bueno, hello. So today we are here on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Twitch, on Twitter, and on Amazon as well. But this for me, this would be interesting for you because I have in my Amazon carousel the two podcasts from Billy. So please join on Amazon, uh, marketing.live. Okay. So you can subscribe the amazing podcast from Billy. Okay. Because you will learn a lot about podcasting. Billy, it's an amazing podcaster. And I will bring him because I left Billy on the basement with a glass of water and two cookies. Okay. Let's bring Billy to the conversation. Hello,
Yeah.
Billy.
What's up, Marco? Thanks for having me, man. So excited. What an intro. I appreciate being here and love your energy, love your passion, love talking about all things podcasting. So ready to dive in.
Thank you. Thanks to you, Billy. It's a pleasure. And let's talk because I think it's good. And a big shout out to Alex B. Sheridan because it was his fault that you're now seated there. Okay.
I
It's
love
funny because
Alex.
Alex, it's an amazing video creator, and you are an amazing audio creator, and I think we can start. But first of all, before starting, thank you to Gabi to joining here. Hello, Sahil. But if you don't mind, Billy, introducing yourself so people get to know you a little bit better, and then we can start with the conversation.
Sure. Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, man, happy to. I found myself in the podcasting space after a career in corporate. I I got into corporate kind of by accident. I never intended to. I always had an entrepreneurial spirit. In my 20s, I made a movie. The movie got picked up for distribution. And it was an amazing journey because I was doing something that I always had passion, which is filmmaking and creating. But ultimately, I realized that being an independent filmmaker does not necessarily pay in the way in which I needed to be paid to start a family. So I got into the renewable space and working for solar companies, which led me to work for Solar City, which was the biggest solar provider, which ultimately led to me working at Tesla. And at Tesla, I was the leader of global onboarding. So my team created Launch, which was the new hire training curriculum for anybody that ever starts at Tesla. And then I ended up leaving Tesla in 2019. At the time, I was the head of global sales training and product training. And so it was an amazing ride. I learned a lot. But ultimately, when I left, I could finally go back and do something more aligned with who I am, which is I love creating. I love making experiences that people could enjoy. And it could be a party, it could be a film, it could be a podcast. So I got into the podcasting space. As you mentioned, I have two podcasts. Inside Out is one, and For the Love of Podcast is another. And I just recently started my podcast production company at the end of last year, Podify, which we help people make podcasts. So we edit podcasts, we do videos, we do web development, anything somebody needs to create a podcast, my team does that. So I'm very bullish on podcasting. I believe it's the medium of the future because there's nothing more intimate than the sound of another human's voice. That vibration that you hear from those vocal cords, it connects to people. You get to know people, and you have a long-term relationship with people because you get to hear them. It's both duration in terms of time and frequency. So duration and frequency. When you hear somebody over and over and over again, and it's frequent, and then each time you hear them for a long time. It could be half an hour, it could be an hour. You get to know them. And that's why podcasting is such an incredible medium.
Absolutely, absolutely. But before that, just let people know that they can make comments, they can put questions. Please feel free. Don't be shy. If you have any questions, just write them on the comments so we can answer you. Okay.
Yeah.
But Billy, you leaded the conversation to the place I wanted to get the conversation, because we here, and I'm a video guy, mostly a video guy, uh, but and there's this thing, people, okay, you should do this, because there are some people that are kind of this is kind of a religion, and if you're not in this, you're out.
Mm,
And also uh, video, but I think, and something you reminded me was those old radio days when we followed
mm,
those radio programs. And for instance, here in Portugal, we had these radio soap operas, kind of.
right.
and and this and the thing is, uh, by these times we lost that, because we know who are the people behind the microphone, but those days usually we didn't had any idea. We reminded that those voices, and those warm voices, and we were wondering, how do they look?
Mm,
What do you have to say? Because I think there's no a perfect format, but I think that for some people, video is the perfect format, audio is the perfect format. Blogging for me, it's still something for lots of people, because some people, they really excel writing. But let's get to the audio thing.
mm.
Why you think that podcasting could be such a good way to create content, even though, for instance, you don't have any radio voice, have a tech background? Because I think for some people, the tech thing, it's a huge barrier. What do you have to say about it?
Yeah, it's a great question. And here's the thing. The first thing I'll say is all of these mediums, they're not mutually exclusive. You don't need to only do one, right? You're doing a live, which is video, and you're doing audio at the same time, and somebody could just listen or they could watch. And there's any variation of written content, visual content, and auditory content. And any one of them can blend together. You could make a podcast that turns into video snippets, that turns into a blog post, or you could write a blog post that becomes a podcast, and that podcast can then become a video. There's no rule. And so don't limit yourself to one, because you could do any or all of them. So that's the first thing. But why podcasting? Why specific audio? Why is that so powerful? I already mentioned the intimacy thing, but the other reason it's so powerful is there's a word called passive learning. And passive learning means that you can do other things while you're listening to a podcast. You can work out, you could do the dishes, you can go for a walk, you can take care of the kids, run errands, you could do anything you really want to, and you could have your earbuds in and you could be listening to a podcast. You cannot say the same thing for other platforms, because you have to be more engaged. You have to be looking and listening. And so I think that's one of the fundamental reasons why podcasting is a powerful platform and powerful medium to communicate. The other reason that it's so powerful is that we as human beings, we relate to stories, and we specifically relate to the sound of a voice telling a story. So you could get emotion with visuals and with music and things that you see. But ultimately, when you hear the sound of a human voice, it connects you with that other person. And you have the ability to really get to know them on another level when you hear their voice. And the voice does vibrate, as I mentioned before. And that vibration, it gives you a connection that I don't think is possible any other way. If you were to read words, it's like reading a text, right? Because there's the inflection of the voice, there's the tone, the tempo, the way the voice comes is so layered and nuanced that we as human beings, we very quickly assess in hearing somebody's voice what we think of it. When we read a text, we're forced to imagine what that text means. Or when we read, right? If you ever get a text, is it an angry text? Is it a happy text? Are they joking? Are they serious?
Yeah,
Right? There's all
absolutely.
sorts of miscommunication that can happen. But when you're It's like like talking to a dog, right? You could say, "You're the worst dog ever," but like the dog doesn't know that because the way you said it was great. And so the same thing holds true with the podcast. And then the last thing I'll share and why I think it's such a powerful platform is that anybody can do it. And everyone says, "Oh, I don't have a good voice. I don't know what I'm going to say." All those are things that people put as barriers and put in front of them, and they tell themselves the story of why they can't or shouldn't do a podcast. But the reality is the only thing you need to do a podcast is a microphone and a recording device, some way to record it. That's really all you need. It's not more complicated than that. Yeah, there's some other things that somebody could guide you through and help you understand the technology, but it's not complicated. You got to host it, and then you got to put an RSS feed on a bunch of platforms that then serve that up to people that listen to it. So really the barrier of entry is small compared to a video where you got to get a camera and lighting and you got to think of the shots and all those things. It's so easy just to press record. And because of that, anybody can do it. And I said that was to be the last, but there's one other thing that you said that I think is really important, and that is what you talk about. People say, "I don't know what I'm going to talk about," or it's crowded. There's so many people. So that's right. There are so many people, but the good news is everybody is unique. You are unique. If you're listening or watching this right now, you are unique. So what is it about you that makes you so unique to other people? And that's how your podcast will be unique, because of you, not despite you.
Absolutely. And I think this is also important because one of the things I've learned when I made a couple of years of theater, okay, but not even amateur. It was kind of a play we have here in the village, and I made a part of it. And one of the things, and I think this is crucial when we talk about content. And even though it's audio, just audio or video, this is, for me, it's really important. When we talk about voice, and people has to listen, because the sound, it's the most important thing when we talk about content. Even though some people may get a huge camera, amazing lights, okay, a good internet, but they have or a bad microphone, or they. And the thing is, and please, I want you to talk about this, because yes, a microphone, it's good. Having a good sounding voice, it's important, but it's even more important to know what to do with your voice. Because, for instance, if you talk too fast, if you don't breathe, it won't be a good thing. So can you give some tips for people that may think that their voice doesn't sound good, but they can work their voice to be kind of heardable or warm or engaging?
Yeah, what a beautiful setup there. So the first thing I'll say is you're so right. The cadence by which you speak and your tonality and your inflection, they all play a role in how the message is being delivered and understood, and the perception of what you're saying really depends upon the way in which you speak, not necessarily your voice itself, but the way in which you speak. And the other piece that you mentioned is, you know, I went to film school, and in film school, one of the things they taught us is the reason people don't like independent films often is because the sound quality is so noticeably bad. Keyword noticeably. Meaning when you hear bad sound, it draws your attention to that bad sound and takes you away from the experience of the film. And so the same thing's true with a podcast. Now, I will say that content will always outweigh quality of sound. If you have great content and you're sharing great ideas that are unique and that are powerful and that mean something to the person who's listening, that will supersede any sound quality because the content's so good. That being said, again, not mutually exclusive. You can have great content and great sound. You can have them both. And the beautiful thing about great sound is when you have it, it will never detract from the experience overall. And because it won't detract, the content, the stories, the value, everything that you're sharing in the actual message will shine brighter. So how do you get great sound? There's 3 levers. Okay. So I'm going to talk about how to get great sound so simply. The first thing, and probably everybody thinks of this, is the microphone. Now, I don't want you to think you need to get a fancy microphone like Marco or like me. You don't. You need an external microphone as opposed to a computer microphone, but that's really it. Because the second 2 levers are even more important. So you get a microphone. Any external microphone is better than a computer microphone, internal. So you get that. But the other 2 things that are really important is 1, recording environment. And so the 3 things are microphone, recording environment, and mic technique. Let me quickly talk about recording environment. This is important. Think about it like this. You want to be in a room that has soft things all around you. Pillows, blankets. You don't need to invest in all the fancy sound treatment and acoustics. You don't need to do that. Even if you got anything soft around you, it's going to prevent your voice from echoing. And that's a really important thing. So that's the room environment. And you also want to make sure there's not a lot of loud things like air conditioners and refrigerators and things that are going to be humming in the background. So listen to the ambient noise in your room and make sure it's quiet. And then the last thing, and quite frankly, probably the most important thing, is mic technique. If I talk like this, you can't hear me. Test, 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 test. Look at the difference between me talking into a microphone and not. And so when you are using an external mic, when you're recording in a great room, and when you have the microphone probably 2 to 4 inches from your mouth, you're going to get great sound.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is important as well, because and there's a funny thing about this. We see people that with the stress of finishing things and delivering the message, they start talking like Speedy Gonzalez.
Oh, yeah.
And in 30 seconds they will are
Out of breath.
breathless. Yes. And the second
Totally.
thing, and this could happen to me because I'm not a native English speaker. Okay, and one of the things I can think, okay, let me do this fast, and I will finish, and I'm done, and I can leave. But the problem is, it has the opposite effect because,
Mhm.
for instance, if I start not spelling right, I will get rolled like a snowball, and this will be improving. Oh my god, I'm not doing this good. I'm ruining everything. So and this has the opposite effect. So I think it's important to have in mind that we should, and I think this could be a nice topic, Billy, and I've been asked about this lots of times, and I'm pretty sure that you already been asked about this lots of times as well, which is, how do you deal with mistakes? How do you face when you have trolls and everything? And my okay, just let us know. And I because this is about you, it's not about me. How do you face those mistakes? How you overcome
Mhm.
this kind of small, tiny frustrations? Okay, because I think this is important, because sometimes people they think, oh, this is too perfect. They do this perfectly. They don't do
Mm.
mistakes. They never did mistakes. Your thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, first of all, I believe in making messy progress. And I'm a perfectionist. So I grew up wanting everything to be perfect, wanting everything to be absolutely the way I intended it to be, flawless. And I think a lot of people suffer from this ongoing battle with perfectionism. It's natural. So the first thing is give yourself some grace, give yourself permission to feel the way you feel, that you want things to be perfect. But remind yourself that good and is better than perfect if it's done, right? So done is better than perfect. And because of that, I think we really got to make sure that we put ourselves in position to land the plane and get things to the finish line. You know, as far as trolls or thinking about what other people think of you, remind yourself that most people who try to cause harm to you or make you feel bad, they usually have something going on in their life that make them feel like they need to do that to feel better. So I actually feel sorry for them, because clearly they are in a place where the only outlet they have to give themselves some enjoyment is to harm or hurt other people. And if that's the case, I actually legitimately, I feel bad. Like, what caused them to feel this way? And that makes me accept the fact that there are going to be a certain number of people, 20, 30, 40% of the world will disagree with you. We know that. We know that in today's political environment, there's always going to be people that have the opposite opinion of you. And if that's the case, the same is going to be true with your content. 20, 30% of the people are not going to like your content. It doesn't matter. There's 8 billion people in the world. And guess what? You don't need 8 billion people to enjoy your content. You don't need 8 billion people to watch this live. If you find 10,000 people out of 8 billion, that's a lot. And there's certainly going to be 10,000 people who will connect with you, who will like your content, who are your people, who are the people that enjoy the work you do. So the mission is to find those people and forgive and forget the people who don't like your work, because honestly, it doesn't matter.
Absolutely, absolutely. And let's say hello. We have people from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil,
Rio,
watching us. Hello, Arnaldo. How are you?
I love Rio.
Arnaldo, it's also a huge content creator and content lover. He's creating all the time. I don't think he can sleep.
It is amazing
Because
when some people create as much content as they do, and I'm so impressed by the people who are prolific with their content creation. I'm always curious about their approach.
okay, I think he can explain to you. Well, the other thing, Billy, and this is something that usually people have this problem, which is I don't know how to talk, what to talk about. I don't know. I have no idea. What can I create? Where I get my ideas? How should I approach to them? How can I build an interesting podcast? Because another thing, it's not just coming in front of. Okay, at the beginning it could be coming in the front of the microphone and just throw content. There you go. Bye bye.
Sure.
Can you share kind of a work frame to become a good podcaster? So, okay, I need the idea and then the content and then editing and then publishing. Can you
Sure.
share some things about it, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing I think y'all should think about is, what is your angle, right? What is the angle that you want to have for your show that will make it stand out and different from other shows? And we're kind of, that should be something that at the forefront of your brain as you're starting to develop the concept. And in the beginning, I think the first thing you do is you design your show understanding your knowledge and your skills and your curiosity. Because I believe that to be a successful podcaster, you have to have long-term interest in whatever it is you're going to be talking about. So if you love Pokemon cards and you think that's something you could talk about for a really long time, then maybe that's what you talk about. But understand that if you're going to get bored of talking about Pokemon cards, then don't start, because you have to have a sustained interest, a long-term interest. Because if you want to reach the level of success that some podcasters reach, look at how long they've been doing it, 5 years, 10 years. And so because of that, find a topic that you're deeply, deeply passionate about and deeply curious about. Write down all the things that you have knowledge in. Are you a great speaker, a great communicator? You're a great leader. Are you understand technology? Maybe you understand AI. Maybe you understand design or marketing. What are those skills that you have? Along with that, what are you deeply curious about? What do you want to know more? Even if you have some knowledge in an area, you want to understand it even more, even deeper. And then once you've figured that out, then you say, okay, how can I make my show different? And I'll give you a technique. If anybody's ever eaten a s'more, then you know that it's a graham cracker with a marshmallow with a Hershey's chocolate bar. Now, any one of those things on their own is great, but when you combine them, it's magic. You cook it on a fire and you make a s'more, and it's the most delicious treat ever. Well, I want you to think about your podcast in that way. If you look at movies that are successful, sometimes it's this movie meets this movie, and that's the new movie, right? And so think about your podcast in this same way. So maybe if you're talking about communication, maybe it's a specific part of communication, or maybe it's specific types of speakers. Maybe you do one that's focused on a certain genre of communication, or if it's a design-based show, maybe your whole focus is on logo creation and you interview people who do logos. So figure out what the specialty is and narrow down, niche down to something that's really specific so that only your show is about that. That's how you create something that people say, I want to share your show because I've never heard of this show before. I want to tell people about it because it's new. And people, they tune out things that are the same. They just ignore them because they've seen it or heard it before. But they tune in to things that are different. We're hardwired as human beings to basically forget anything that's the same. For the same reason that when you drive from point A to point B over and over and over again to work, you kind of forget you did it. You're like, did I just drive here? But when you're traveling and you go to a new and exciting place, you remember everything that happens.
Yeah.
It's all brand
Absolutely.
new. And so this is why when you create content that's new, people really, really love it. And when you create a show concept that's novel or new, people really, really like it. And I think that's the beginning formation stages of the show. And I can get into further stuff, but that's the baseline of getting it started.
Great point. Because I think, and there's this thing, and I'm pretty sure, Billy, that you faced this situation a lot of times, because it's when people they saw this great content creator like Alex B. Sheridan, for instance, or Gary V, or whatever, or Billy. And one of the things that they try to do, okay, this guy, it's amazing, it's working for them, let me copy and do the same way.
Yeah.
But the problem is
that's them. Yeah, that's their genius. And it's not, you can't borrow ideas and methodologies and that it could work, but put your own flavor on it. You the unique factor will always be you. So what is it about you that's unique? And think about, really reflect and give yourself some time to think about the zone of genius that you fall into. Is there something that you've always, if you were to ask 10 of your friends, what are the things that you're best at? And I would suggest doing this, by the way. You ask 10 of your friends, oh, you're best at this, that. You'll see some themes pop up. And based on those themes, that'll direct the approach that you take. But yeah, I mean, it's easy to borrow what other people are doing, but I wouldn't do a direct copy. You could do a version of it, but make it you and make it unique to you.
Yes, absolutely. And talking about unique, I've seen, I won't say that was a little bird that told me. I've seen those two podcasts from you, and I'm pretty sure that they are different. Do you want to tell which one you started and why, and then why you came up with the second one and why as well?
Sure. Yeah. So I started Inside Out in 2019,
And the
September.
name, sorry to interrupt us, this name, it's really good.
Thanks, man.
Out.
I appreciate that.
And I love this kind of tricky words, like you say, like you can see the marketing thing.
I appreciate that, man. Yes, I started Inside Out, and really the mission and the objective is we all have moments in our lives where we have a moment of insight, a moment that changes our life. And these are transformational insights. And so what I do is I interview remarkable people who have made a significant impact on the world in some way. They're either thought leaders or they are successful founders or entrepreneurs. And I ask them, what moments of insight have played the biggest role in you becoming the successful person that you are? And so I started that in 2019. And then in 2020, I started For the Love of Podcasts. And really the objective of that show is I meet with people who have had tremendous success in the podcasting space, either as a podcaster or as a support for podcasters. So experts in podcast advertising, experts in sponsorships, experts in understanding all the technology, and then people in the podcasting Hall of Fame. So really the podcast is meant to help podcasters make better podcasts. And then I also have another show that I just started called Things You Didn't Know with my son. So I have a 9-year-old son, and we do things you didn't know about Abraham Lincoln, things you didn't know about the United States, things you didn't know about Disneyland. And so we do that sort of on a part-time basis, but it's fun to be able to explore. We did things you didn't know about the Titanic. And so it's just a fun little thing that we decided to do together.
Okay, just if you want to make an episode about things you didn't know about Portugal, just let me know and I can help.
I love it. Oh, I want to go to Portugal. So that's because it's the one country I haven't been to in Western Europe. So I can't wait to go.
Okay, good. You should come. But one thing, and this is for me was a game changer. Okay, was bringing guests to my shows. This was something that leveled up my and helped me a lot in my career. But for some people, and we should talk about this, for some people, having competitors in their podcasts or their videos, it's not a good idea because, I'm giving them to exposure, to spotlight, and I don't want to having a competitor on my show. Are you nuts? Why do you think? And you're not answering me, of course, because I know the great advantage of having other professionals or brands on your shows. But for the audience, which advantage do you find on bringing guests? Which for some people they are competitors, but they are not, because there's a huge market for all of us.
That's right.
Which advantage do you find on bringing guests to your shows?
Well,
Vila?
and it's not just bringing guests to your show, it's you going on other shows as well, right? And I think what I would suggest is exchange the word competitor with collaborator. So
Absolutely.
everybody that you're thinking is a competitor really should be a collaboration partner. And even though you might have separate businesses, realize that you may be a better fit for someone and they may be a better fit for someone. And there is, as you said, there is plenty to go around. I know there are some hyper competitive markets out there, but there are also a lot of people in this world. And so if you do it in the right way, really there's no harm in bringing people onto your show that are in this exact same business as you, because A, you could learn from them. B, you can bring in anybody that they know could listen to your show because they want to listen to that person. And then you're building an alliance with somebody that has knowledge in your space. When you build that alliance, imagine what you can do if you work with them instead of against them. Imagine I have people who do the same thing I do, who now I could call and I could ask them, hey, what are you doing about this? Or Facebook just launched a podcast player. Like, what's your approach? I have a guy who's amazing named Julian, who he's in the podcasting space. He helped me understand some things about marketing and podcast advertising that I was learning about. And he's been very open and free with his time. And now if I have somebody that needs a service like the one he offers, and he works with very large podcasts, I'm going to go to him. And so that kind of networking and that kind of alliance building will pay huge dividends. And the last piece is, if you invite them on your show, don't you think there's a decent chance they're going to invite you on their show? And guess what? Their show likely talks to the same audience that you talk to. And guess what? When that happens, you're going to grow your audience because you're going to gain exposure to people who like to listen to content similar to the type of content you put out. So to me, it's malpractice to not work with your competition. Work with your competition, get to know your competition. They need to be your best friends. The better you know your competition, the more you'll be able to evolve your own business.
Absolutely, and something that then you mentioned, and this is, and also the authority that being a guest of someone brings to you, because this is also about authority as well. Because, and I'm not talking about the police authority.
Totally, though. It's a great point, man. I mean, you are seen as an authority when you're being interviewed. And when others are being interviewed, you're creating a new type of appreciation of you and who you are and the skills that you have, because you are seen as an authority in that field.
Yes, indeed. And for instance, I'm, as you know, and I'm in Portugal. It's a really small country. And for instance, I always tell this story because for me it's so funny. One day I was about to start an interview with Jeffrey Eisenberg from Eisenberg Brothers. I don't know if you know them.
Sure.
They are amazing guys.
Yeah.
And I asked, where are you located? And he told me, I'm in Texas. And I asked, are you in Houston? No, I'm in a small town, Austin, just 3 million people. And I thought, our main city, Lisbon, don't even has, I think it's around 500,000, the whole zone, like the
Mhm.
metropolitan area, which is the city of Lisbon and a few more. And I was saying, this man is saying to me that a small town has 3 million people, one third of the
Right.
Portuguese population. And this is something that sometimes it comes to my mind that, for instance, I'm here, I'm located in a small village with just 1,000 people. Okay, as I like to say as a joke, but it's true. I have more followers on each on any given
Than in your own town. That's awesome, dude.
that
I
I have
love it. I love it.
people in my village. And sometimes people ask me, and I think the first mediatic guest I had was Neil Schaefer. He's an amazing guy and also an amazing
Yeah.
podcaster. And I was having dinner with a friend, and I asked, "Do you know who I will bring to my interview next week?" And he said, "Of course, I don't." Neil Schaefer. Oh my God, how do you make it? I just asked him.
There you go. So many people will say yes. You just got to ask. That's the thing is people are afraid to ask because they're assuming they're going to say no. Yeah, I had Neil on my show too, and he was great.
Absolutely. And he was, I think in this show, he was my last guest before you.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
Yes. So I think if you didn't have any cookie, blame on Neil.
There's none left. Okay. I was wondering where they were.
Well, okay, let's talk about this that could be also interesting because I've been asked this lots of times. We know how important it is when we talk about entertainment, how we talk about humor, or these kind of things that can bring some spice to your podcast. But the thing is, not all of us have this amazing sense of humor. Some of us, we are a little bit serious, but we want to be more engaging. Okay, which advices, Billy, can you give to those people who
Sure.
are not that good making laugh, but they want to be entertaining as well?
Well, I think everybody has a sense of humor. I really do. I think everybody has a sense of humor. The problem is people are telling themselves that they're not funny. And the reason why I say everyone has a sense of humor is that if you've ever laughed, you have a sense of humor. You know what you think is funny. And I think the thing that holds people up is that not everyone is good at being funny in the moment or thinking on their feet. But I believe everybody has the ability to write something funny. Meaning, I suggest as you're doing research for your podcast, figure out something that you can add that will make the guest laugh. I'll give you a couple examples. So, I interviewed a guest named James Carberry. I researched him. He's a in the podcasting space. He created a company called Sweet Fish Media. And there's a candy called Swedish Fish. That's his favorite candy. That's why his company is called Sweet Fish Media. So when I started the podcast, I got a bag of Swedish Fish, the candy, and I said, "Hey, James, I hope you don't mind, but I'm going to start by eating a couple of these." And I started eating Swedish Fish, and he cracked up. And this is something that I prepared in advance. And so another guy, he's from the birthplace of the candy Pez. These are both candy examples, funny enough. But Pez is the little candy that you pull the head back and then a little candy comes out. He was born in the place that invented Pez candy. So much like I did with James, I said, hey, Steven, I hope you don't mind. I got a little Pez here. And I know you're from there. And he's like, how did you know that? And he started laughing. So these are things that I thought of in advance. And you could do anything like that will allow it breaks the ice. And I like doing it in the very beginning. So think of it as an icebreaker. Think of, what can I say that would surprise them? What would be unique? I interviewed another guy, and this isn't laughing, but I read a letter that his father wrote to him before he died. It was a very heartfelt letter. And I read it, and I this is the very first thing I said. I said, who wrote that? And he goes, my dad. My dad wrote that. He goes, no one's ever read that to me. Because he had put it in a blog post. So I read this really heartfelt letter, and he had tears in his eyes as I was reading it. And so it captured emotion. So I think emotion, whether that be laughter or tears, they really do create a interesting and unique dynamic between you and the guest that makes the show more memorable, more heartfelt, more human. And you can do that by proactively thinking of ways to bring that emotion out and not trying to do it on the spot, because maybe that's not your wheelhouse. But if you do it in advance by thinking as you're doing your research, what can I do to elicit some emotion? Then you'll be able to do it.
Absolutely right. And we have another, my folk, my Ryan Swanstrom, which it's my co-host on Fridays. We do the amazing show.
Nice.
maybe we should bring you one episode as well, because it's a really funny thing. But this for me is also another thing really important. And I'm pretty sure, Billy, that you had some hosts that at the end maybe you didn't felt like this show was really about me, the guest, or was just like the host to make his own show. And from time to, I think this is really, it's not just bringing guests, it's not just, it's this, and as you mentioned, this preparation, this bringing some stories to engage the guest, to show them that you make your homeworks. This is really important. Which tips do you give to someone who wants to bring guests? Okay, but to make the guests feel really important, which would be, because I think sometimes people just forget something, which is people watching the show will notice when you're not treating the right way your guest, and not letting him talk, don't kind of making these sneaky questions or these kind of things. And for instance, I once I was in an interview that at some point I thought this guy is making the questions for him to answer.
That's hilarious.
Okay. So which advices will you give so people can take the most of the guests and make them because this is something that good to make them want to get back to your show, for instance?
Yeah, well, I think as the host, your job is to make the guest shine, make them feel like a rock star. And a friend of mine, he said this, and I love this quote. He says, research equals respect. Research equals respect. So I think the first thing is, if you're interviewing somebody, do the work in advance to know who they are, to know what they're all about. The more you know about them, the easier it will be for you to make them shine. But as importantly, the easier it will be for them to share things that will be valuable to your audience. So know your audience, know what they want. And as you think about what they want and what they need, think about what your guest is able to offer to serve that need. And so as you do your research, what I suggest doing is read the books that they've written, if they've written them, or listen to other podcasts they've been on, not so that you could ask the same questions. It's actually so you could not ask the same questions, but also so you could listen to what moments of insight or moments that are of value have happened to this person that would be valuable to your audience. I also think it's really important to remember that time is the most precious resource we all have. And so when you zero in on a specific part of a story or zero in on a specific moment in somebody's life, you're allowing the most important part of the story to shine through. Instead of saying, hey, tell me this long story. No, hey, I know that this story happened. You kind of tee it up and then you say, tell me what the impact of that story was, or what was the main takeaway, or what was the lesson that you learned because this happened. And you wouldn't know that story even existed if you didn't do the research. So the more you know going in, the better. And then the other piece is get creative with your research. So I'll give you a couple examples. One, if you're interviewing somebody famous, you could look at the talk section of the Wikipedia page. I learned this from Jordan Harbinger. The talk section is where people debate what should be on the main Wikipedia page. And this is like behind the scenes. So no one's going to ask questions about what's in the talk section of the Wikipedia page because no one's looking there. Or maybe when you read reviews on a book, and I also got this from Jordan Harbinger, read the negative reviews on that book. Not so that you can tell this person their book sucks, but so you can ask questions about some of the counterpoints of the book, and not just like, oh, I didn't get the book. Read the helpful reviews, helpful negative reviews. And then the other thing that you can do is really go deep with your research. Look at social media posts from years ago. I went and looked at a guy's social media posts from like 6-7 years ago. So I went back in his Facebook because he mentioned that he made this post when he started his business. He was going to go on this world tour. And that allowed me to talk about something that most people aren't talking about. So figure out what those moments are, those moments that maybe are not frequently something that person talks about. And that's what you want to bring out in the conversation. So the more you know going in, the more you'll be able to do that when you're actually having the conversation.
Absolutely. This makes, and this could be also a good thing, making this kind of turning back to the first step or something, because sometimes we think that when people started, they were already amazing, they were already good, huge, and this, okay, I can't be like them, I won't be able to grow and to become so good. And when people, and I do this all the time when I do my trainings, I get back to the first video I recorded and uploaded to Facebook, and I say, look, if today you record a video and it will be as bad as this one, I will be really frustrated.
I love it. That's amazing.
Because it's
we all start somewhere, man. We all start somewhere.
Yeah,
we got to accept the fact that we're going to get better. The more we do it, the more you do it, the better you get. So the sooner you're able to do things, the faster you'll get to where you want to go. But if you keep waiting to do something because you want to, quote unquote, get better, you're not going to get better because you're not actually doing it.
Absolutely. Yes. And this Ryan is saying, make your guest shine. So true. Great statement. And you talked about Spotify, your news, and this could be a great way as well to help creators, starting creators. And okay, let's make it a little bit different. For instance, today I want to start my podcast journey.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't know almost anything about podcasting, and I'm here wondering, what can I do? How can Spotify help me?
Well, first, what I'll say is that Spotify is one company. There's lots of companies out there. There's lots of people out there. So regardless of who you get help from, I'll tell you that one of the biggest mistakes I made early on was not finding a guide, a mentor, somebody that could help me, somebody that's been down the path that I want to go. I tried to figure it out all on my own by doing the research and learning. And it's just not the same as having a one-on-one conversation with somebody that's had some success and understands what you need to do. So yes, Podify can do that, but other companies can do that too. What you get with Podify is we make sure that we're going to be by your side every step of the way. We have a launch program that'll allow you to launch your show. And so I'm a very detail oriented person. So what I created is a launch guide. And if any of your listeners or viewers want it, simply connect with me and I'll send you the launch guide. And I'm happy to take a 30-minute meeting to go over it with you and answer questions. But really, it walks you through all of the pieces. It says, what's your intention? Why are you doing this? What topics do you like? What's your show structure? What do you want to call it? What do you want the artwork to look like? And what I suggest doing as an action step is become a student of podcasts that are in your space. So if you want to do a marketing podcast, listen to every marketing podcast that's out there today. And not because you want to copy them, but what you want to do is you want to see, what do you like? What artwork do you like? What intro do you like? What outro do you like? What format do you like? What style do you like? What length do you like? All of these things collectively can help you start to identify what the DNA of your show will be. As you think of your show title, make sure it's boring and descriptive. The more boring and descriptive it is, the more clear it will be what you do. So the reason I did For the Love of Podcast is it's clear. It's a podcast about podcasts. So even though I like the name Inside Out, some people may not know exactly what it's about. So it's a clever name, but it's not necessarily as clear of a name. So what I'll say is figure out what people will know about your show based on the title and maybe a tagline or a subtitle. And then when you're working with whoever you're working with, and again, Podify we do editing, we do video repurposing, we help you build your website, we help you get hosted and basically take the guesswork out of it. And other people can do this too. You want somebody that's going to help you take the guesswork out of it, right? So you want to do a trailer, you want to do a great intro, a great outro, and then ultimately you want to put out something. I think the biggest roadblock people have is their own mind and their own inability to accept the fact that you're not going to be perfect from the beginning. You got to understand that you will get better as you go. But if you wait for perfect in the beginning, you may be waiting forever. And so don't wait forever. Get going and start it. And I believe everybody has the ability to make a podcast if you want to. If you don't want to, don't do it. I don't think everybody should make a podcast because some people don't want to. So your heart's got to be in it. Your passion's got to be in it. And if your heart, your passion is in it, you can do it. I really believe anybody that wants to do it can do it and can do it really well. But you gotta start by understanding that you can't do it alone. And I mean, you could, but it's much harder to do it alone. It's much easier to do it with people, especially people that have done it before.
Absolutely, absolutely, really, really great point. And having this, how can I say, honesty, if I can say it this way. I don't think it's the right translation. I'm thinking in Portuguese and translating to English, which is not so good all the time. but the thing is, it's really important, and I do this all the time as well. I'm not I'm not the only option in the market as well, and also. And I like to say this because, as I said at the beginning, video is the thing, and you should go live and everything. And at some point when I started doing my trainings about video, I faced it, and I started talking about video, and people were like getting pale, and I said, okay, maybe this is not for you. And that's the thing. We should respect that instead of being forcing people. Okay, you have to do it.
That's right.
Feel bad. And I think this is something common on these days. It's having these experts making you feel bad because you're not doing what they want you to do. I think it's not the right way to make people to do things. Like, okay, you're letting money on the table. You can make $1,000 per minute and everything. I don't think it's the right approach because, okay, a few people will understand. They will give the step, but hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of people will feel really bad because they it's not for them. It's they won't like to do that. They don't feel comfortable doing that, and they ultimately they don't do that, but they will feel really frustrated, really bad, because okay, I'm lazy, I'm worthless, and this kind of things. And this is something that I'm being really cautious lately. Okay, you have this could be good for you, could be, but if you don't feel comfortable with doing that,
Mm,
no problem at all. You have other options,
that's
and
right.
this is something that we should have in mind. But you mentioned something, and let I think this could be a nice way to finish the show, because and this is also a problem we face, and I faced this at the beginning, which was we talk to feel to make the others feel we are smart instead of the make them understand what we are saying.
Mm,
For instance, you mentioned, okay, this the name of this podcast may be boring, which I don't think, but it's easy to understand
mm.
what's there, what you can expect from there. But I think this is also important when we see so many people, thankfully, uh, creating, instead of looking smart, look helpful, look
Yes,
understandable, right?
100%. Yeah, I think ultimately people are tuning into content either to be entertained or to be educated. Excuse me. And if that's the case, then educate or entertain, and educate in a way where people will understand and be able to take action. That's why I think most people resonate with ideas that are new, that they haven't heard before, because they will pay more attention. Now, new doesn't necessarily itself is new. It could be the delivery of that idea, right? The idea itself may be something that they've heard before, but the way in which the idea is shared, it's shared in a new or unique way. And if you're entertaining people, then entertain them. Figure out ways to have fun and to create an experience where they want to keep coming back. As far as the title, it's the title should inform people, because you have very, very limited time to capture their attention. So the artwork, the title, the show summary, they all play a role in helping to inspire people to click play. And if your artwork isn't clear, if your title isn't clear, if your summary doesn't convey the message and meaning behind your show, people are going to go somewhere else. And so this is why it's important on the front end to take the time to get those things right. And the other piece is you got to explore ways to get your show out there beyond those things, whether that be paid advertising or social media or going on other podcasts or focusing on organic reach through SEO and building a website and long form articles. There's all sorts of things you can do, but creating a podcast is kind of like writing a book, right? They say don't judge a book by its cover, but guess what? People do. People judge books by the cover all the time. They judge
Absolutely.
books by the name. They judge books by the reviews. And so a podcast is very similar to that. There's a lot of people who've written books, and a lot of them didn't sell very many books. Just like a lot of people create podcasts and not very many people listen. So it's incumbent upon you as the host, as the creator, as the person who's doing the show to figure out ways to get your show out there. And so if you have a show, about med tech, know that you need to go to the med tech space. Where do they hang out? Where do people in the med tech industry, where do they spend their time? And guess what? You have one conversation with one person that could lead to a listener. You have two conversations that could lead to two listeners. And so in the beginning, don't be afraid to have one-off conversations with people. It could be on Reddit, it could be on Twitter, it could be in real life, it could be at a convention. You have these conversations. The more people you have conversations with, the more potential listeners you get. And that's how you build the momentum of your show.
Absolutely. Well, what an amazing way to finish the show. Before asking you to tell people where they can find you, I'm just remembering you that are in the other side of the camera or the other side of the screen. Don't forget on Amazon, just type marketing.live and you will find in the beginning of the carousel the two podcasts of Billy, For the Love of Podcast and Inside Out. Okay. And you just by clicking, you can subscribe both of them. Okay. You need to do once at a time. Okay. But it's just by clicking. Okay. Because this will really help you if you want to become good on podcasting. Billy, where can and how can people find you
Yeah.
besides following your podcast?
Well, first, Marco, it's been an absolute joy. I love your energy. I love your passion. I love the way in which you create these conversations. And it's clear to me that you have a gift for bringing out the best in people. And I really do
Thank you so
admire that.
much.
So thank you. For me, look, one is LinkedIn. Find me on LinkedIn. I'm there. You just type in Billy Samoa. And then two, if you want help with your podcast, you can go to podify.com and there's links to schedule some time. If you want to have a strategy session, feel free to reach out to me either of those places. Podify, podify.com, and you'll see you could schedule some time to meet or go to LinkedIn and connect with me and let me know that you listen to this show and that's how you found me. I always love meeting new people, especially people who are on a mission to do something powerful with their time on this planet. So appreciate the fact that Marco, you had that you invited me here and that you had so many great questions. So it was a true honor, and I can't wait for our next time to connect.
Perfect. I think next time will be a little bit deeper about Podify because I'm curious.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Billy, for joining my show. It was a really pleasure, an honor because you shared lots of amazing insights in and out.
Well, I appreciate it, man. It's been an honor.
Thank you so much. And thanks as well for all of you who were watching the show, Gabe, Ryan, Arnaldo, and all of you who tuned in. I will be back soon and to talk about these kind of topics because I think it's important to talk about content creation and gear and everything. So tune in, follow me as well. Okay, besides Billy, you can follow me as well so you can stay in touch and you can see my next content. Enjoy the rest of the week. Start podcasting because this is huge. Bye bye.